So you have more stories about the family of Abraham for me? Yes, sir, I do. That's great. I've been curious about the aftermath of the whole genital mutilation strategy God initiated in the last installment. Oh, have you? Sure. I mean, people must think Abraham is nuts, right? Unknown because there's no mention of a reaction. Really? Yeah, people just apparently accept it and move on. There's no discussion why they're performing ritual mutilation of the penis. None whatsoever. I've got to say, I'm very curious what it would take to provoke a conversation amongst these people if cutting up someone's genitals doesn't do it. I mean, if God commanded them to soak their private parts in kerosene, then told them to set them alight, wouldn't they question that directive? I don't know. What if he said he wanted to whack their nuts with a meat tenderizer? Would that give them pause? It's not. What if I walked up to you with, say, a huge snapping turtle and told you to drop your drawers? Are you telling me you wouldn't have at least a couple questions for me? Oh my goodness. Can we just move on to Abraham having his next son? Whatever. Oh, thank God. Okay, so after allowing Abraham to impregnate the slave Hagar, God decides it's time to undo Sarah's infertility. Isn't Sarah around 90 by this point? She is, yeah. So if God has had this fertility trick in his arsenal, couldn't he have just restored Sarah's when she was younger? Why would he do that? To avoid the whole situation of Abraham breeding with the slave Hagar? That does sound like it would have been a much better plan. But who are we to argue with the ultimate intelligence in the universe? You know, that is quite the theological straight arm. I know, right? Will you be using it a lot? You know it, sir. Oh, unexamined appeals to celestial authority are tight. Yeah. So what happens next? Well, we leave the newly pregnant Sarah for now to move on to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. What's going on there? Unspecified naughtiness that God disapproves of. That's pretty damn vague. We haven't decided yet what it is they're actually doing. Maybe you should just go ahead and spell it out now to avoid any confusion later. I'll get to it. Don't forget. I won't. Anyway, Abraham really goes to bat for the wicked men of those towns bargaining with God to spare their lives. Very nice of him to push back on God's homicidal fury. Push back he does. What do you mean? Well, first he asks God if he'll call off the mass murder if 50 good men can be found in Sodom. Interesting. What does God say to that? He says, deal. If I can find 50 good men in Sodom, I will call off the mass murder. If he can find. Isn't God omniscient? Hey, shut up. So then Abraham says, well, if you'll do it for 50 good men, how about for 45? Okay. And God says, sure, if I can find 45 good men, I'll call off the holy ass kicking. Great. Then Abraham asks, how about 40? Speed it up a bit, brother. Sorry, this goes on by tens until Abraham gets to the quantity of only 10 good men. Oh, tedious countdowns for indecisive deities are also tight. Yeah. Does all this bargaining work? Nah. Wow. So a couple of angels go to Sodom to warn Abraham's nephew Lot that God's coming to bring the hammer down. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's about to get intense. But first, all the men in the city go to Lot's house because they want to have sex with these angelic visitors. Oh, very weird. What does Lot do? Lock the doors and pray to God for rescue? No, he offers up his own daughters to the mob in their place for a good old mass SA. I'm sorry, what? He does what? He offers his daughters to the rape mob. Oh my God. Yeah, the two men are his guests, you see, and it would be very impolite to allow them to be SA'd. So it's okay for a father to offer his daughters to be SA'd in place of his guests? I mean, what does God think about that? Unknown, because God never comments on it at all. Seriously? And aren't these guests in fact angels? Couldn't they simply vanish or fly away or something? Seems like they could, but they're not going to do that. How very odd. Well, it sounds like it's going to be impossible to get out of this situation. Actually, it's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, really? Yeah, one of the angels simply hits the mob with a blindness spell, and they just walk away. A blindness spell? What, every person in the mob is struck blind? Yep. Well, that's a total game changer. They must use that blindness spell all the time after this. It will be used one more time much later on and then never again. Oh, wow. I know, right? So, Lot and his daughters flee the city. And then God brings the hammer down. It's fire and brimstone, baby. What a ghastly scene, but I guess it's justified because every single person in those towns deserved a horrifying death. Well, Lot's future sons-in-law apparently stay behind, so they're collateral damage. Meh, what's a couple of innocent lives, am I right? Now you're getting it, sir. So, Lot and his daughters go to live in a small town named Zoar. Okay, but they leave Zoar almost immediately to go live in a cave. Interesting choice of housing. It is, and in the cave they all have sex. Oh, what? Yeah, it turns out Lot's daughters think the only way they can carry on the family line is by having sex with their father. You're looking a little peaked there, sir. Well, I'm sure God has something to say about that. He remains completely silent on the matter. What a mysterious guy. Yeah. So where do we go from here? Back to Sarah, who births Isaac. Oh, right, I almost forgot about that. Just curious, are there any babies that aren't the product of SA or incest as the narrative continues? Eventually? Probably? I don't know. Fingers crossed on that one. So Abraham must be thrilled to have another son. Oh, absolutely. Because hardly a chapter passes before he, takes Isaac to the top of a mountain to disembowel him and burn him on a funeral pyre on orders from God. Oh my God. Yes, he is, sir. And he's Abraham's God too. So God needs to be sure that Abraham will do whatever he commands. But God is omniscient, right? Doesn't he already know Abraham will blindly follow this order? I'm sure he does. But he has Abraham go through the motions anyway. Surely Abraham at the very least tries to bargain with God for the life of his son. He doesn't utter so much as a peep in protest. But you said earlier that he bargained with God for the lives of the wicked men of Sodom. He did, yeah. But he doesn't even try when it's his own son. Nah. What a wonderful role model for us all. He is. So, just as Abraham is about to plunge a knife into his son Isaac, an angel intervenes, showing how merciful God truly is. That certainly was nice of him, aside from the unnecessary psychological trauma these two unfortunate people have surely suffered. Now that I think about it, they're probably scarred for life. God is so good. Always. So what happens next? Well, Sarah eventually dies, and then we jump to the story of how Isaac finds a wife. Ooh, a romantic love story? As if. No, a servant just picks up a cousin for him from a nearby group of relatives, and that's that. A cousin, of course. Of course. And then they have twin sons, Esau and Jacob. All right, and what are they like? Esau is furry, and Jacob is basically a con man. Okay. And Esau, being the firstborn son, is supposed to inherit all his father's property. Yep, that's how it worked back then. But turns out Isaac is feeble now. And Jacob uses that as his opportunity to scam Esau out of his birthright with the help of their mother. The mother helps one son steal another son's inheritance from their father. She does. Oh, toxic mothers are. Please don't say they're type. Oh. Good call. So after Jacob steals his birthright, Esau vows revenge. Can you blame him? Not at all. So Jacob is directed by his mother to go live with his uncle Laban until things cool down. Seems like a smart move. You'd think so, but Laban's cut from the same treacherous cloth as Jacob and his mother. I'm shocked. I know, right? So Jacob makes a deal to work for his uncle for 7 years, and his reward is supposed to be Laban's younger daughter, Rachel. And what craven trick does Laban have in store to swindle his nephew? You're really catching on, sir. Laban pulls a switcheroo with the girls and tricks Jacob into sleeping with his older, less attractive daughter, Leah. How the heck does he manage that? Oh, that is completely unexplained, but only when Jacob wakes up the next morning does he realize he's consummated the marriage with the wrong girl. My God, it sounds like some sort of French bedroom comedy. What, sir? I have a question. What's that? What the hell is wrong with these people? Nothing at all, sir. They're the pillars of the early church. But are they? Really? Of course! It's just very hard to believe that people as despicable as these could ever serve as the foundation for any sort of moral code. Don't worry, sir. It'll just take a little PR spin. PR what?